They told her the gods had chosen her fate, to marry the alpha she feared, and die beneath his name. But when the torches died and the shadows moved, something ancient answered her silent cry. A stranger stepped from the dark, a creature carved of night and blood, and with one whispered word, he changed her destiny forever. This is where her story begins. The moon hung like a blade above the night. Its light poured through the open roof of the stone amphitheater, pale and merciless, illuminating the wolves gathered in perfect circles. The scent of iron and wet earth lingered in the cold air, a reminder of ancient rites older than any living soul here. At the center of it all stood Elara. She wore a gown of ash-gray silk, its hem heavy with embroidered silver thorns. Her hands trembled as she gripped the offering knife, its hilt slick with dew. The wolves around her chanted in low, rhythmic tones, words carved from the oldest language of their kind. Tonight, she would be bound to Alpha Corvin of the Ashen Fang Pack, a union meant to restore balance. A lie wrapped in tradition. Elara's stomach knotted as she looked up at him. Corvin was towering, all muscle, shadow, and command. His dark hair was tied back, his jaw hard, his golden eyes fixed on her with a hunger that wasn't love. He looked like a man who enjoyed breaking things to prove they belonged to him. When the high priest raised his hands, silence fell. "Elara of the Silver Glen," he intoned, voice echoing across the marble chamber. "Do you offer your life and soul to Alpha Corvin, as dictated by blood and law?" Every heartbeat felt like a drum pounding against her ribs. Her throat was dry. The crowd leaned forward, waiting for her submission. Her voice cracked. The torches went out. Every flame in the room died at once, snuffed out as if the night itself had inhaled. Gasps erupted. The high priest's chant faltered. Somewhere, a wolf howled, sharp and terrified. Then came the sound of boots on stone. A figure stepped into the circle of moonlight. Tall. Silent. His coat swept behind him like smoke. His hair was silver black, his skin pale as bone, and his eyes, gods, his eyes, were the color of spilled wine. They burned. Corvin snarled, stepping in front of Elara. "You dare trespass here, leech?" The newcomer didn't reply. He simply looked at her, and when his gaze met hers, the world stopped. There was recognition in his eyes. Not curiosity, not lust, recognition. "Elara," he said softly. "You don't belong to him." Her heart slammed against her chest. "Who are you?" she whispered. His lips curved faintly. "The one who's come to take you home." Corvin lunged, but before he could reach the intruder, the stranger raised a hand. Shadows surged from the floor like black water, wrapping around the alpha's limbs. He froze mid-stride, his growl dying in his throat. Panic rippled through the pack. Half-shifted wolves bared teeth, claws flashing in the moonlight, but none dared move closer. The vampire, because that's what he was, every instinct screamed it, turned his gaze back to her. "Elara," he said again, voice smooth as ice. "Come with me." Her pulse roared in her ears. Behind her, Corvin's voice cracked like thunder. "If you take a single step, you forfeit everything. Your pack, your blood, your name." Elara hesitated. She had lived her entire life beneath commands, her father's, her alpha's, her fate's. The weight of it all pressed down like chains. But in the vampire's eyes, she saw something that terrified her more than Corvin ever could. Freedom. Her fingers twitched. "Don't," Corvin snarled. And that was the moment she realized he wasn't begging. He was warning. Because if she chose differently now, his entire world would burn. She stepped forward. Corvin's howl split the air. The vampire's hand extended, and shadows burst from the floor, swallowing the world in smoke and wind. Elara gasped as the ground vanished beneath her. The marble floor, the wolves, the moon gone. Only darkness remained. Then, the scent of pine, the sound of wind through leaves, the glow of distant stars. They stood at the edge of a forest bathed in silver mist. Elara turned to him, her breath trembling. "Why did you do that? Why me?" He met her gaze, eyes glowing faintly red. Because, he said softly, you were never meant to kneel. The forest was alive with whispers. The wind slid through the trees like a sigh, brushing past leaves that shivered with warning. Silver mist curled around the roots, coiling up Elara's legs like ghostly vines. Every sense screamed that she shouldn't be here, that she'd stepped into something far older and far more dangerous than the world she'd known. The vampire moved ahead in silence, his coat barely stirring despite the chill breeze. His presence filled the night, commanding and deliberate. There was a quietness to him, not absence, but control, like the still surface of a lake hiding something vast beneath. Elara followed at a careful distance. Her heart hadn't yet slowed since the moment he tore her from the ceremony. The image of Corvin's frozen snarl, the chaos in the hall, the sudden leap into nothingness, it all replayed in flashes behind her eyes. She stopped suddenly. You can't just steal me away like this. He didn't turn. I didn't steal you. I freed you. Her voice cracked, a whisper swallowed by the wind. You killed them. I spared them, he said, his tone quiet but sharp. For now. She wanted to argue, to demand answers, but before she could speak, a sound cut through the forest, a long, low howl. Distant, but unmistakable. Elara froze. They're coming. The vampire finally turned. In the dim light, his face was carved in calm lines, pale, unshaken. Of course they are. Wolves do not accept defeat easily. He moved closer, and the air around him seemed to change, denser, colder, electric. They'll hunt you to the ends of the earth if they must. Corvin cannot allow this insult to stand. She took a shaky step back. Then why did you take me? You've made me a target. He paused for a moment, his crimson eyes studying her like she was a riddle he already knew the answer to. Because you already were one. You just hadn't realized it yet. Before she could ask what he meant, the next howl came, louder, closer. Then another, and another, until the entire forest seemed to echo with the fury of the pack. He turned toward the trees, his expression unreadable. They move fast. We move faster. Without waiting, he stepped to her side and reached for her wrist. His hand was cold, unnervingly so, but his grip was firm, steady. Don't let go, he said. She wanted to protest, but the next sound that reached her ears, the thunder of paws against the earth, tore the choice from her. She clutched his hand, and in an instant, the world blurred. They moved like shadows. The trees streaked past in smears of gray and silver, the wind roaring in her ears. Her feet barely touched the ground, her breath catching as if the air itself bent around them. It felt wrong, impossible, like being pulled through the seams of reality. When they finally stopped, they stood at the edge of a ravine. The moonlight shimmered over the rushing river below, breaking on jagged black rocks. Elara stumbled, gasping. Her legs trembled with exhaustion and disbelief. What are you? The vampire's eyes glowed faintly, catching the moonlight. Names are human things, he said. But if you must call me something, Kale will do. Kale, she repeated softly, the name strange on her tongue, ancient and heavy. The chorus of howls broke again, closer now, echoing from the trees behind them. Shadows flickered at the edge of the clearing. The pack was almost upon them. Kale turned to face the sound, his expression sharpening. They've found us. Elara's pulse spiked. We have to run. He shook his head slowly.
No.
Running only tells them we fear them. He stepped forward, his coat rippling like smoke, eyes flaring brighter. Let them come. The forest seemed to darken around him. The air grew colder, the mist thicker, as if the night itself bent toward his will. The sound of the river faded, replaced by the drumbeat of paws, snarls, snapping branches. Kale spread his fingers slightly. The shadows obeyed. They rose from the ground like living tendrils, coiling around him, whispering in a language older than the moon. Elara stumbled back, her heart racing. You can't fight them all. His gaze flicked to her, sharp, cutting through the chaos. You don't understand, Elara. He took a slow step toward her, the darkness parting for him like smoke. I am not fighting them for you. He reached her, his voice dropping to a whisper. I am fighting them because of you. The first wolf burst from the treeline, fur bristling, eyes glowing with golden rage. Kale turned toward it with the calm of a man walking into the inevitable. Stay behind me, he said softly. And when the wolf lunged, Kale's hand moved faster than sight. Shadows lashed upward, meeting flesh with a hiss like fire meeting oil. Elara screamed as the night exploded into violence. The battle had begun. The first wolf struck with a snarl that tore through the mist like thunder. Its claws slashed for Kale's throat, but before the blow could land, the air around him rippled. Shadows surged upward, catching the beast mid-leap. There was a flash of movement too fast for Elara's eyes to follow, then a wet, choking sound as the creature crumpled to the ground, lifeless. For a heartbeat, silence held. Then the forest erupted. Wolves poured from every direction, streaks of gray and gold and black fur, snarling and snapping, their eyes glowing with the same fury that once ruled her father's court. The night was alive with roars, the sound of tearing earth, the crack of splintering branches. Kale moved like water, each step precise, unhurried, deadly. Where his shadow touched, the light dimmed, and where he struck, wolves fell. His coat flared with every motion, the air humming with strange energy. It wasn't brute force that made him unstoppable. It was control. A chilling, ancient precision that made the violence almost beautiful. Elara backed away, heart hammering. The ground was slick with dew and blood, the scent of iron and pine thick in her throat. She'd seen warriors fight before, but this was different. Kale didn't fight like a man. He fought like something elemental, inevitable, a storm given shape. A wolf leapt from behind her. She screamed, stumbling backward. But Kale was already there. One arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her close. His other hand shot upward, catching the beast by the jaw mid-lunge. The sound of bone breaking echoed through the clearing. The wolf fell limp. He didn't release her right away. His chest rose and fell against her back, the rhythm calm even as chaos burned around them. The scent of cold smoke and iron clung to him. When he finally spoke, his voice was low enough to be felt rather than heard. Don't look away. She turned her head slightly, her cheek brushing his collar. Why? Because you need to see what they would have done to you. Before she could answer, another wave of wolves broke through the mist. Kale stepped forward, his hand leaving her waist with a reluctance that felt almost human. His eyes gleamed crimson as he raised both arms. The shadows obeyed. They erupted from the ground like smoke and flame intertwined, forming jagged tendrils that lashed through the clearing. Wolves were thrown aside, as if the darkness itself had teeth. Each impact sent a pulse of energy through the air, shaking the earth beneath Elara's feet. Her knees gave out. She sank to the ground, trembling, unable to tear her eyes away. This wasn't merely magic, it was dominance, the kind that bent the world to a single will. When it was over, the forest fell silent again. The mist drifted low, veiling the ground in silver. The air smelled of blood and frost. Kale stood among the fallen, motionless, the faint glow of his eyes dimming. For a long moment, he looked like a statue carved from night itself. Then he turned toward her. His face was unreadable, but his voice was soft, softer than she'd ever heard it. You're trembling. I just watched you slaughter half a pack, she whispered. Of course I'm trembling. He stepped closer, slowly, as if approaching a wounded animal. I did what was necessary. They would have torn you apart to please their alpha. You didn't have to kill them. His eyes darkened, not with anger, but with something deeper. You think mercy keeps monsters at bay? He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could see the faint traces of crimson along his jaw. Mercy is what they use to bind you. She looked away, tears stinging her eyes. You talk like you know them.
Ida.
His voice was barely a whisper now. Once, long ago, I was bound to a pack like yours. I know what they take when they call it loyalty. That silenced her. The words hung in the air, heavy with something unspoken. She wanted to ask more, but before she could, Cale dropped to one knee beside her. His hand lifted, not to command, not to threaten, but to brush a loose strand of hair from her face. His fingers were cool against her skin. "They'll send more," she murmured. "Corvin won't stop. Then neither will I." The conviction in his tone made her chest ache. No one had ever spoken for her like that. Not her father, not her so-called mate. She swallowed hard.
Why?
Why protect me? Cale's thumb lingered near her jaw, tracing the edge of her pulse. Because you remind me of something I thought I'd lost. Her breath caught. What? Hope. For a moment, the world felt still again. The mist, the moonlight, even the ache in her chest. Cale's eyes glowed faintly red in the half-light, but there was warmth there too, buried deep beneath centuries of ice. He rose, offering his hand. "We need to move before dawn. The Alpha will come himself next." Elara hesitated. Her instincts screamed not to trust him, not to trust any creature who could command shadows and tear through wolves as easily as breathing. And yet, when she placed her hand in his, the tremor that ran through her wasn't fear. It was recognition. They found shelter in the ruins before dawn, a crumbling fortress half swallowed by ivy and fog. The stone walls were fractured, but ancient wards still shimmered faintly across their surfaces, invisible to most eyes, but pulsing with quiet strength. The air smelled of dust, pine, and forgotten memories. Cale led her through a collapsed archway into what had once been a grand hall. Now, only remnants of tapestries hung from the walls, their once vivid colors reduced to ghostly threads. A fire sparked to life in the hearth without touch or flint. Shadows coiled near Cale's boots, whispering faintly before melting away. Elara stood a few paces behind him, her arms wrapped around herself. Her gown was torn and smeared with dirt. A faint streak of blood marked her cheek. She felt fragile, not in body, but in the overwhelming silence that followed chaos. Cale gestured toward the fire. "Sit. You'll freeze before the sun rises." She hesitated. "Do you always give orders, or is that just for me?" The faintest smile ghosted across his lips. "Only when people refuse to take care of themselves." Elara exhaled through her nose, half amusement, half exhaustion, and sank onto a stone ledge near the fire. The flames burned colder than normal, their light tinted with blue, yet the warmth they gave was real, softer, gentler. Cale watched her quietly for a moment before removing his coat. He draped it over her shoulders without a word. The fabric was heavier than she expected, lined with dark velvet, smelling faintly of iron and cedar. "You should rest," he said. "I can't." She met his gaze, and her voice dropped to a whisper. "If I close my eyes, I'll see them again. The wolves. The blood." Cale nodded slowly. "Then stay awake. But breathe." He turned, pacing to the edge of the hall. Moonlight filtered through a gap in the roof, pooling silver over the broken stones. His silhouette cut clean against it, tall, still, powerful. After a long silence, Elara asked softly, "You said you were bound to a pack once. What did you mean?" Cale's jaw tightened. "It was a long time ago." "I don't care. Tell me." He looked over his shoulder, eyes faintly glowing, the firelight flickering across his face. For the first time, he looked uncertain, not weak but human. "I was born a wolf," he said finally. "Not like Corvin, not bound by laws of dominance or bloodlines. My pack was different. We lived under the rule of an ancient alpha who believed strength came from sacrifice." Elara frowned. "Sacrifice." Cale nodded, stepping closer to the fire. "Every generation, one of us was chosen, bled beneath the moon, to renew the pack's bond to the old gods. I was that sacrifice." Her breath caught. "But you lived." A bitter smile touched his lips. "Yes, because the gods didn't take me. Something else did." The fire flared faintly as he spoke, shadows rippling in answer. "I was offered a choice, die as a wolf, forgotten, or rise as something eternal, bound to the night itself. And you chose this, she whispered.
I chose survival.
Silence settled again. The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. For the first time, Elara didn't see him as the terrifying creature who had torn through her world, but as someone who had clawed his way out of death itself. She looked down at her hands, her voice trembling. You said I was never meant to kneel.
What did you mean by that?
Cale's eyes softened. He crouched in front of her, resting one arm across his knee. Because I've seen your kind before. Women used as peace offerings between packs. Promised, traded, controlled. You wear obedience like armor, but you were never born for it. Her chest tightened. No one had ever said it aloud. No one had dared. I didn't ask to be promised to Corvin, she murmured. My father made the deal. Said it would bring protection, honor, alliance. I was the price. Cale's jaw clenched. That's not alliance. That's ownership. He leaned forward, his gaze locking with hers, molten and unyielding. I didn't tear you from that hall because I wanted to claim you, Elara. I did it because no one should have the power to claim you at all. Her throat tightened. Then why do you keep looking at me like that? His lips parted slightly. For a moment, silence stretched thick, electric. Because I don't want to own you, he said. But the night I saw you, I knew that if I left you there, I'd never forgive myself. The words hit her like a spark in dry grass. The room felt smaller suddenly, the fire's light pulsing against her skin. She forced a breath. You risked war for someone you didn't know. Cale's gaze drifted toward the open sky above them. Perhaps, he murmured, I already knew you. You just don't remember yet. Elara frowned. What are you talking about? But Cale only rose to his feet, turning toward the shadows gathering at the edge of the hall. His eyes had gone distant, listening to something only he could hear. They're still hunting, he said quietly. The alpha won't stop until he spills blood. And when he comes, you must be ready, because it won't be just him. What do you mean? Cale looked over his shoulder, his voice almost reverent. Corvin isn't the real danger anymore. The thing that made me what I am, it's waking. The fire flickered out. The cold rushed in. And in the hollow quiet that followed, Elara realized something had shifted, not just in the world outside, but within herself. Because for the first time, she didn't just feel afraid of what she might become. She was curious. The first tremor came just before dawn. Elara felt it before she heard it, a low, thrumming pulse beneath the stones, like the heartbeat of something buried deep in the earth. The ruined fortress shuddered once, dust falling from the rafters. Cale froze mid-step. His head turned slightly, crimson eyes narrowing. They've found us. Elara's breath hitched. Already? He didn't answer. Instead, he lifted his hand, the air rippling faintly. Shadows crept along the walls, pooling like black water. The fire in the hearth snuffed out, replaced by a heavy stillness. Then came the sound, the distant echo of claws against stone.
Dozens of them.
Elara pressed her back against the wall, her fingers clutching Cale's coat tighter around her shoulders. What do we do? Cale's voice was quiet, controlled. You stay behind me. You don't move unless I tell you. He turned toward the broken archway. Mist rolled through the opening like breath from a sleeping beast. A faint golden glow shimmered within it. Eyes. Too many to count. The wolves had come, and at their center, towering above them all, was Corvin. He was in his half-shifted form, monstrous, half man and half wolf, his body slick with dark fur and blood. The golden hue of his eyes burned like molten metal. His voice, when he spoke, was deep enough to make the walls tremble. You've taken what's mine. Cale didn't flinch. You mean the woman you caged? Corvin snarled, his fangs flashing. You think yourself powerful, blood drinker, but you don't understand the laws of our kind. She carries the mark of my pack. Her life is bound to mine by right. You can't break it. Elara's chest tightened. Her mark, the faint crescent scar that pulsed faintly at the base of her neck, burned as if ignited. Kale's gaze flicked toward it. That's no bond, he said softly. It's a chain. Corvin stepped forward, the ground cracking under his weight. You speak as though you know honor. You, a creature that feeds on the living, that hides from the sun. Kale's lips curved slightly. And yet, here you stand, the beast who would tear his mate apart to prove he owns her. The wolves behind Corvin growled, their hackles rising. The air grew thick, charged with violence. Corvin's gaze shifted to Elara. You'll come back willingly, he said, his tone deceptively calm. Or I'll burn this ruin to the ground with you in it. Something inside Elara broke. The old fear, the kind that had once kept her silent, rose up like a tide. But beneath it, something else stirred. Not fear. Not this time. Resolve. No, she said softly. Corvin's head snapped toward her, eyes blazing. What did you say?
Her voice steadied.
I said no.
You don't own me.
The room went silent. Even the wolves hesitated. Kale's eyes flicked toward her, and for the first time, a flicker of surprise passed through his expression. Corvin bared his teeth, stepping forward. You dare defy your alpha? I was never yours to begin with, she said, each word stronger than the last. You only saw what you wanted, obedience. But I'm done being a cage you can close. The mark on her neck glowed faintly now, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Kale's expression sharpened. He saw it too, that shimmer, that flicker of light beneath her skin. Something ancient. Something not entirely human. Corvin's snarl split the air. Enough. He lunged. Kale moved instantly, intercepting him midair. The collision shook the floor. Dust exploded outward as the two alphas crashed into each other, shadow against flesh, night against moonlight. Elara stumbled back as chaos erupted. Wolves surged forward, claws raking against stone. Kale's shadows met them, slamming them back, but even his power had limits. The fortress trembled with every strike, the walls cracking under the force of their fury. Corvin's claws slashed across Kale's chest, leaving deep crimson trails. Kale didn't flinch. He countered with a surge of dark energy, his hand gripping the alpha's throat, forcing him back. But even as he did, Elara felt something tearing inside her, a tug, like invisible threads binding her to Corvin's rage. She gasped, clutching her chest. Kale, I can feel him. Kale turned sharply, his eyes wide. The bond. Corvin laughed, a low, guttural sound that rattled through the air. You can kill me, vampire, but she'll die with me. Elara's pulse stuttered. Pain shot through her spine like fire. The mark on her neck burned brighter, the light spreading under her skin like molten gold. Kale's expression hardened. Then I'll sever it. He raised his hand, and the shadows gathered, coiling around Elara like smoke. The room dimmed, the air crackling with power. Elara's knees buckled. What are you doing? Trust me, Kale said, his voice the calm before a storm. This will hurt. And then he spoke a word in a language older than the moon. The shadows erupted into light. Elara screamed. It felt as if her blood was being rewritten, her very soul torn from Corvin's hold. The golden mark flared white-hot, cracking like shattered glass. For a moment, the pain was unbearable, and then it was gone. The mark vanished. Corvin roared, clutching his chest as if something had been ripped from him. He stumbled back, eyes wild. What have you done? Kale stood between them, breathing hard, his expression grim. I've given her what no one ever gave me, he said quietly. Freedom. Corvin lunged again, but Kale was ready. His shadows struck faster than lightning, wrapping around the wolf's throat. The two locked eyes, fury against fury, power against power. And for the first time, Kale smiled. You're finished. With one final motion, the shadows slammed Corvin into the stone floor. The impact cracked the earth itself. When the dust cleared, the alpha lay motionless, his chest barely rising. The surviving wolves, one by one, backed away, their eyes flicking to Elara, then to Kale. Without a word, they retreated into the mist. The silence that followed felt unreal. Elara dropped to her knees, gasping for air, her hands shaking. The world tilted, her vision blurring. Kale was beside her in an instant, catching her before she could fall. "It's over," he murmured. She looked up at him through tears, her voice barely a whisper.
No.
"It's just beginning." Because somewhere in the back of her mind, beneath the pain, beneath the fear, she felt it. The pulse of something new. Something alive. Something hers. Dawn crawled over the horizon in streaks of blue and gold, seeping into the broken walls of the ruined fortress. The air smelled of ash and rain. A hush had fallen over the clearing, broken only by the soft crackle of embers still smoldering where Kale's shadows had burned too hot. Elara stirred. For the first time in hours, she felt the weight of her body again. Heavy, grounded, human. Her chest rose in shallow, trembling breaths. Her head pounded, her veins humming with a strange warmth that wasn't pain but didn't feel natural either. She sat up slowly, her palms pressed against the cold stone. A faint shimmer followed her movement, a glimmer of silvery light that trailed her fingertips before fading. She froze, staring. "What?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "What is happening to me?" "You're awake." Kale's voice drifted from the far end of the hall. He stood near the collapsed archway, his back turned, blood drying dark against the torn fabric of his coat. The sight of him, tall, unmoving, shoulders tense, sent a strange ache through her chest. She tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. "Kale, He turned. His face was pale, almost too still, but his eyes, those molten gold eyes, held a depth that made her breath hitch. "You broke the bond," she said softly. "You saved me." Kale's jaw tightened. "I severed your tie to Corvin, yes. But what replaced it?" He trailed off. Elara frowned. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, studying her as if she were something fragile and dangerous all at once. "The mark you bore, it wasn't just a symbol of his claim. It was an anchor. When I destroyed it, the power binding you didn't vanish. It needed a vessel." Her heart skipped. "And that vessel is me?" Kale nodded. "And me." The silence stretched. Elara's pulse raced, her fingers curling against the stone. "What does that mean?" "It means," Kale said quietly, "that part of my power, the darkness that answers to me, now answers to you." Elara shook her head, disbelieving.
No.
"That's not possible."
I'm not.
Her words cut off as the shadows around her feet began to stir. At first, she thought it was just the wind. But then they moved, curling like smoke, swirling around her in a slow, sinuous dance. The firelight dimmed as the darkness gathered, drawn to her heartbeat like a tide. "Elara," Kale said, stepping forward, his tone sharp.
Breathe.
"Focus." I can't. Look at me."
She did.
And in that instant, something inside her shifted. The shadows froze, suspended in midair, waiting. Her chest heaved, her pulse thundered, and as she exhaled, they receded, slipping back into the corners of the room like obedient spirits. Elara blinked, her voice trembling. "They listened to me." Kale's gaze softened, but there was no triumph in it. Only concern. "They'll always listen now. You carry the echo of my bond. What happens if I lose control? Then they consume everything around you." Her breath faltered. "Everything." He nodded once. "Everything." The air between them thickened, charged. The flames flickered faintly, painting Kale's face in shifting light. His expression had hardened, but beneath the tension there was something else. Fear, maybe, though not for himself. "Kale," she took a hesitant step closer. "You said you wanted to give me freedom. Was this your idea of it? Tying me to your power?" His voice came low, rough. "It wasn't my choice. I didn't intend for this to happen." "Then what did you intend?" she asked, anger rising beneath the confusion. He met her gaze, and for a heartbeat, the mask slipped. The calm, unshakable predator was gone. What stood before her was something raw, vulnerable. "I intended for you to live," he said simply. Even if it meant damning myself a little more. The words hit her like a blow. She didn't know what to say. The silence that followed stretched long and fragile, filled only by the rhythm of their breathing. Finally, she whispered, "What happens now?" Kale turned back toward the dawn breaking beyond the archway. "Now, we train. You need to learn to control what's inside you before it controls you. Because Corvin isn't the only one who'll come for us." Elara frowned. "Who else?" Kale's eyes darkened. "When I tore the bond, I felt it, the ripple it sent through the veil. The ones who made me, they felt it too." "You mean the gods?" He shook his head slowly.
No.
"Something older." Her stomach twisted. "What do they want?" His gaze met hers again, and this time, there was no pretense, no restraint. Just quiet inevitability. "They want you," he said, "because you survived what should have killed you. Because now, you're proof that their curse can be undone." Elara's breath caught, her pulse hammering. The fire burned brighter, the shadows whispering faintly around her as though recognizing the truth. And for the first time since she'd met Kale, she didn't feel small beneath the weight of what was happening. She felt powerful. Terrified, yes, but powerful. And when Kale reached for her hand, his voice soft, she didn't pull away. "This is the beginning of something neither of us understands," he said. "But if you stand with me, Elara, I swear I'll teach you to command it." Her fingers tightened around his. "Then teach me." A faint smile ghosted across his lips, something dark, something proud. "Very well," he murmured. "Let's begin." The days that followed blurred into one another, half shadow, half light. Kale kept them hidden in the ruins while the world outside whispered of shifting power. The forest grew quieter, the bird-song subdued. Even the wind seemed to pause when he spoke. Elara learned quickly that the silence between them wasn't just stillness, it was tension, waiting to be broken. He trained her at dawn. "Again," he said, his tone even but unyielding. Elara stood in the center of the cracked courtyard, her palms raised, the faint shimmer of dark mist swirling between her fingers. Her breath came fast, her focus wavering. The energy felt alive, thrumming under her skin like a heartbeat that wasn't hers. "It's too much," she gasped. "Control it," Kale said. "It feeds on your emotions. You tremble, it trembles. You doubt, it resists." "I'm not like you," she hissed through clenched teeth. A flicker of amusement crossed his face. "Good. The world has enough of me already." The shadows flared, snapping outward in a sharp gust that cracked the stones beneath her feet. Elara stumbled back, her pulse racing. The dark energy coiled into a shape, the faint silhouette of a wolf, before dispersing into mist. Kale tilted his head, eyes narrowing. "Interesting." "What was that?" she asked, still breathless. He took a slow step forward. "Something that isn't mine." Elara's brows furrowed. "You mean?" "I mean your power isn't just an echo of mine anymore." His gaze sharpened, studying her like she was a riddle unraveling before his eyes. "It's changing." Her stomach tightened. "Changing how?" Kale didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached out, his gloved hand hovering near hers. "Show me again." She hesitated. "Last time I almost." "Trust me," he said quietly. Something in his tone, calm, commanding, certain, steadied her. She nodded and inhaled deeply. The air thickened, rippling faintly around her. Her eyes drifted shut as she reached inward, calling to that place where shadow and fire met beneath her skin. The darkness came eagerly this time, smooth and fluid, wrapping around her arms in ribbons of silver-edged black. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears. "Good," Kale murmured. "Now focus it. Give it form." Her brow furrowed. "What form?" "Anything." She exhaled, and suddenly, the darkness flared. The courtyard filled with lightless energy that curved into something vast and impossible. A shape rose behind her, tall, winged, rippling with raw, untamed power. Kale's eyes widened. Elara. The shadow creature let out a low, resonant sound. Not a growl, but a song. A vibration that made the air itself tremble. It was beautiful and terrifying, its edges flickering like flame. Elara opened her eyes, her voice shaking. "I didn't mean to." "I know," Kale said. "But don't stop." He stepped closer, his hand brushing hers. The contact sent a jolt through her, cold and electric, a pulse of shared energy. The shadow rippled in response, shrinking, folding in on itself until it vanished into her chest with a soft sigh of air. Silence fell. Kale didn't move for several seconds. Then, quietly, he said, "That wasn't mine. That came from you." Elara swallowed hard. "Then what am I?" Kale's gaze softened, though something wary lingered behind it. Something the gods didn't account for. Her heart hammered, her mind spinning. "So, this is me?" "Yes." He took another step closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "And it's magnificent." The word hit her harder than she expected. No one had ever called her that before. Not beautiful, not chosen, magnificent. The heat between them changed then, subtle, but undeniable. The air seemed to hum, the shadows around them curling like smoke caught in a slow wind. Kale stood so close now, she could feel the cold aura radiating from him, brushing against the warmth that pulsed from her. "I don't know how to control it," she said softly. "You don't," he replied. "You learn to listen to it. Power isn't tamed, it's understood." "And what if it understands me better than I do?" Kale's lips curved faintly. "Then it will test you, as all power does. And when it does, I'll be there to keep you from breaking." Her pulse quickened. "You can't promise that." "No," he admitted. "But I will anyway." Their eyes met, gold to gray, and for a heartbeat, neither spoke. The weight of everything unsaid hung between them. The things they'd endured, the things they feared, the things they wanted but couldn't name. Elara broke the silence first. "You said we're bound now." Kale nodded. "Then when I call the shadows," she hesitated, her voice lowering. "Do you feel it too?" His gaze flicked away, the faintest tension in his jaw. "Every time." She swallowed. "And what do you feel?" Kale's answer came after a long pause. "Everything you try to hide." Her breath caught, and before she could speak again, he stepped back, breaking the spell between them. The cold air rushed in where his warmth had been. "That's enough for today," he said, his tone clipped again, back to command.
Rest.
"Tomorrow, we push further." Elara nodded slowly, though her heart still thundered. As he turned away, she caught her reflection in a shard of broken glass, her eyes faintly glowing silver, the shadows beneath her skin pulsing softly, like veins of light. Whatever she was becoming, it wasn't human anymore. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the ache and fear, a single, dangerous thought took root. Maybe she didn't want to be. Night fell like a whisper. The ruins were quiet, too quiet.
No wolves.
No wind. Just the faint hum of magic in the air, the same pulse that had lived beneath Elara's skin since Kale severed her bond. She sat near the fire, staring into the blue-tinted flames. They flickered strangely now, reacting to her heartbeat, bending, curling, changing color with every tremor of emotion. The warmth wasn't real, not entirely. It was an illusion conjured by Kale to comfort her. But it worked. It almost made her forget what she was becoming. Almost. She heard him before she saw him, the soft sound of boots against stone, the brush of a coat sleeve against the wall. He moved like a shadow made flesh, effortless, silent, and impossibly composed. Kale stepped into the light, his golden eyes catching every flicker of fire. He looked tired tonight, his coat open, his shirt streaked with the dark stains of battle long since dried. Yet there was something in the stillness of his expression that unnerved her more than the sight of blood ever could. "You didn't sleep," he said quietly. Elara shook her head. "I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see things." "What things?" "Not memories. More like echoes." She hesitated. "When I touch the shadows, they whisper. Sometimes they show me faces. Yours."
Mine.
Someone else's. Kale's brow furrowed. That shouldn't be happening. She looked up sharply. What do you mean? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he sat across from her, elbows resting on his knees, eyes fixed on the fire. My kind, he began slowly, carry memories in our blood. Power, once shared, can echo between souls. But you weren't supposed to hear them. So this is you? She asked. Your memories? He hesitated, then nodded once.
Some.
But not all. The rest may belong to what's waking inside you. The fire crackled, throwing strange, shifting shadows across his face. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Elara whispered, Does it scare you? What's happening to me? Kale looked up.
No.
She tilted her head. You're lying. His mouth curved slightly, a faint, humorless smile. Perhaps. I'm afraid of what it might cost you. Power always asks for payment. And what did it cost you? She asked softly. His gaze held hers. Everything. The words landed like stones between them. The fire dimmed, its blue glow softening to silver. She stood, pacing to the edge of the hall, her bare feet whispering against the cold stone. I don't want to be afraid anymore, she said, almost to herself. All my life, fear was the only thing that kept me breathing. But now, she turned, her eyes catching the firelight. Now I think it's killing me. Kale rose slowly. Fear doesn't die easily. It's a patient enemy. Then help me kill it. Her voice trembled, but her gaze didn't waver. Kale took a single step toward her. Then another. The air thickened between them. The firelight flickered, shadows curling along the floor as though drawn to the pull between them. Elara, he warned, his tone low. You don't understand what you're asking. Then make me understand. He stopped inches from her, his height casting her in shadow. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the rhythm of their breathing. She could feel the cold emanating from him, the strange, intoxicating energy that was both terrifying and magnetic. Tell me, she whispered, what happens if I lose control again? Kale's voice dropped to a near growl. Then I'll stop you.
How?
His eyes flared gold. Anyway, I have to. The words sent a shiver down her spine. Fear and something else intertwined. Her heart pounded, and before she could think, she reached for him. Her fingers brushed his chest, cold, smooth, impossibly still, and the shadows responded. They surged to life, wrapping around both of them like ribbons of ink. The fire flared, the air crackling with energy. Kale caught her wrist gently but firmly, his voice rough. Elara, stop. I can't, she whispered. It's not me. Yes, it is. His other hand rose to her face, his thumb tracing her jaw, grounding her. The touch burned, cold and electric, but it steadied her, anchored her in the chaos. Breathe, he said. You're stronger than it. She met his gaze, eyes silver now, glowing faintly, and for the first time, she didn't look away. And if I'm not, Kale's lips curved into the faintest shadow of a smile. Then I'll hold you until you are. Something inside her broke. The power receded, slowly, reluctantly, until only silence remained. The shadows melted back into the walls. The fire dimmed once more. Kale didn't move. His hand was still against her cheek, his breath cool against her skin. Neither spoke. The air between them pulsed with everything unspoken. Fear, longing, recognition. Elara's voice came out barely above a whisper. You said power demands payment. What do you think mine will cost? Kale's expression softened, a mix of sorrow and inevitability. If the gods have their way, everything that makes you human. She didn't flinch. Then I hope it's worth the price. He looked at her for a long, silent moment, then stepped back as though breaking free of something invisible. Rest, he said quietly. Tomorrow we begin again. Elara watched him disappear into the dark corridor, his shadow trailing long behind him. Her heart still raced, her skin still humming with the echo of his touch. And somewhere in the depths of the hall, the whispering began again. But this time, it wasn't in Kale's voice. It was hers. Elara didn't sleep that night. She lay awake in the ruined hall, eyes tracing the fractured ceiling where moonlight spilled through the cracks. The whispers had grown louder since the fire dimmed, no longer soft murmurs at the edge of hearing, but voices woven from shadow and memory. At first, they were just fragments, words she didn't understand, faces she didn't recognize. Then, as her heartbeat slowed, they aligned, each whisper folding into the next until they formed something whole. A story, and she was in it. She sat up, breath shallow, her pulse thrumming in her ears. The air shimmered faintly, and the shadows along the walls began to move, not creeping or curling, but flowing together like liquid glass. The shapes formed a mirror, smooth and rippling. Elara, her name, spoken in her own voice. She approached slowly, drawn to the reflection. But what looked back wasn't her. The woman in the mirror wore her face, but her eyes were pale gold, her hair streaked with white fire. A faint symbol glowed at her throat, the same sigil Kale had carved into the altar when he severed her bond. Only now it pulsed like a heartbeat. "Who are you?" Elara whispered. The reflection smiled faintly. "Who do you think I am?" Elara swallowed. Another echo? Another memory? "No," the reflection said softly. "I am what you were before the wolves bound you, before the gods caged you in mortal skin." Her breath hitched. "That's impossible." "Is it?" The reflection's eyes softened. "Do you think Kale's power clung to you by accident? Do you think the gods marked you by mistake?" Elara shook her head, her voice trembling. "You're lying." "I am you," the voice said gently. "And I remember what they've forgotten." The shadows rippled again, and suddenly the mirror wasn't a mirror at all. The world shifted, the air around her bending, folding, until she stood in another place entirely. A vast hall of stone, older than any ruin she had seen. Pillars carved with runes stretched into the dark, their surfaces glowing faintly with golden light. At the center stood a throne of obsidian, and on it sat a woman draped in shadow, her face hidden, her presence vast and suffocating. Elara knew without knowing how, this was a god. But not one of Kale's cruel makers. This one watched, waiting. "You came back," the woman said, her voice resonant and layered. "After all this time?" Elara trembled. "I don't understand." The goddess rose. Her steps made no sound, yet the air shuddered with each movement. "You were the key," she said. "The bridge between light and dark, between what they made and what they feared." Elara's mouth went dry. "The curse?" The goddess inclined her head. "Kale was the first, the prototype. But his creation came from something stolen. Your blood, your essence. You were the one they meant to bind forever, to keep balance. But you escaped." Elara's chest tightened. "That? Then we're going to the heart of night." Kale's gaze darkened. "You don't know what's there." "I don't care," she said. "If I'm the reason this curse exists, then I'll be the one to end it." For a long time he didn't move. Then, finally, he crossed the distance between them and took her hand. "Then we go together," he said. The shadows stirred, answering the vow like a living thing. And far above, in the heavens that neither of them could see, something ancient turned its gaze toward them and smiled. They left before dawn. The air was heavy, the sky a bruised shade of violet that bled into black at the edges. A fog hung low over the forest, clinging to the roots and twisting trunks like a shroud. Even the birds were silent, as if the world itself had stopped to listen. Kale led the way. He moved without hesitation, his cloak brushing the ground like a ripple of shadow. Elara followed close behind, her breath visible in the cold. Neither spoke. Words felt dangerous now, fragile things that might break the thin line of calm between them. The deeper they went, the stranger the world became. Trees leaned inward as though eavesdropping. The ground pulsed faintly, veins of silver light running through the roots beneath their feet. The moon overhead no longer looked whole. It had split into two pale halves that chased each other across the sky like ghosts. "This is wrong," Elara murmured, her voice small against the vast quiet. The air feels alive. Kale nodded once. It is. We're crossing the border. The border of what? Of life, he said simply. Her skin prickled. They walked for hours, or maybe days. Time unraveled here. The fog never lifted, the light never changed. Once, Elara thought she saw a flicker of something in the distance, a city of black stone, suspended upside down in the sky. But when she blinked, it was gone. Eventually, Kale stopped at the edge of a ravine. Below stretched an abyss so vast and dark it seemed to swallow sound itself. A faint red glow pulsed at the depths, rhythmic, steady, a heartbeat. The heart of night, Kale said quietly. Elara stepped closer to the edge, her breath catching. That's it? That's where you were created. Kale's jaw tightened. Where I was remade. She turned to him. What does that mean? He didn't answer at first. His eyes were fixed on the glow below, his voice distant when he finally spoke. The gods tried to craft balance, light and dark bound by mortal will. But they feared what they made. So they shattered it. They made me a vessel, filled with power stolen from what you once were. Elara's stomach twisted. From me. Kale met her gaze, the gold in his eyes dimming to amber. You are the source. The one thing they couldn't control. When they couldn't contain your power, they tore it from you and bound it into others, into monsters. Into me. Her hands trembled. So you're saying I created you? No, he said softly. They made me, from the pieces they took. But you're the reason I survived. Elara's heart pounded. Then if I destroy the heart, Kale nodded grimly. You end it all. The curse, the bloodlines, everything they built. She turned back toward the abyss. The glow seemed to pulse faster now, as though it heard them. What happens to you? She asked quietly. Kale's silence was answer enough. Elara swallowed hard.
No.
Elara. No, she said again, louder this time. I won't kill you to save them. I won't play the gods' game. Kale stepped closer, his hand brushing her shoulder. You may not have a choice. The power is waking. The gods will come for it, for you. When they do, they won't stop until the balance is restored. She spun toward him, eyes flashing silver. Then let them come. For a moment neither moved. The wind tore through the ravine, carrying with it the faint scent of ash and iron. Kale studied her, something raw flickering behind his composure, pride, fear, love. You don't understand what they are, he said. Then teach me, she replied. Before they find us. Kale exhaled slowly, the faintest tremor betraying the calm mask he wore. Once we descend, there's no return. The heart will call to you. It will promise truth.
Power.
But it will lie. And you, she asked, will you lie too? He hesitated, then reached up, fingers brushing her cheek. Not to you. The ground shuddered. A deep, resonant hum rose from the abyss, shaking the air around them. The fog began to twist, spiraling downward in slow, hypnotic circles. It's opening, Kale murmured. It knows you're here. Elara looked down into the darkness. The glow below pulsed faster now, 1,000 heartbeats in unison. She could feel it in her veins, calling to her, whispering promises of release and remembrance. Her fingers found Kale's. Then let's finish what they started, she said. He tightened his grip, firm, steady, unyielding. Together. They stepped forward. The earth cracked beneath their feet. Shadows rose like smoke, swallowing the sky. And as they fell into the abyss, the world above them vanished, devoured by the dark. They fell for what felt like forever. Down, past the last traces of light, into a realm where shadow breathed like a living thing. The air was thick with memory, voices whispering in tongues that had no beginning or end. Every heartbeat echoed like thunder. Elara clung to Kale's hand. The warmth of him was the only thing anchoring her as the darkness swallowed everything else. Then suddenly the fall stopped. They stood on solid ground, though the word ground felt wrong here. The surface beneath them shimmered like liquid glass, reflecting a sky of black fire and drifting fragments of broken stars. And at the center of it all, suspended in the void, was a heart. Enormous, luminous, beating with slow, terrible rhythm. The heart of night. Elara couldn't breathe. It wasn't made of flesh or stone, but of every shadow ever cast, every nightmare, every sin, every stolen piece of light. Kale's expression was unreadable. This is where it began. She turned to him. Then this is where it ends. But as she stepped forward, the heart pulsed violently. The world rippled. From the black sky above, shapes began to emerge, vast and formless, their edges wreathed in light too bright to look at.
The gods.
They didn't speak in words, but she felt their voices inside her skull. Deep, ancient, undeniable. Return what was taken. The ground trembled beneath her feet. Power surged through her veins, searing and cold. The sigil at her throat ignited, glowing like molten gold. The shadows around her bent toward her, eager, desperate. Kale reached for her. Elara. Don't listen. She gasped, pain lancing through her body. They want me to give it back, to seal it again. That's what they want. Kale's voice cut through the roar. But if you do, they'll bind you like before. You'll lose everything. I can't. She doubled over, the energy ripping through her. Her reflection appeared in the glass beneath her. Eyes blazing gold and silver, hair whipped by wind that didn't exist. If I don't stop it, the world will. Let it burn if it must, Kale said, his tone breaking. You don't owe them salvation. She looked up at him, the man born from her stolen power, the creature she was meant to destroy. And in his eyes, she saw it. Not darkness, not sin, but humanity. A flicker of something the gods had never understood.
Choice.
Her trembling hand reached toward the heart. Shadows gathered around her arm, spiraling upward like smoke. Kale stepped forward, his own power bleeding into hers, a mingling of night and light. Elara, he said, voice low and steady, if you take this power, you end the curse. You free every soul they've bound, but you'll lose yourself. And if I don't, then I will. Her breath caught.
No.
He smiled, faint, sad, infinite. You were always meant to be free, even if I was made to cage you. Before she could speak, he stepped forward between her and the heart. No, she cried, reaching for him. Kale's eyes met hers one last time. You gave me life, Elara. Let me give it back. The shadows rose like a storm. Light exploded from the heart, blinding, searing. Kale's body lifted, suspended in the air, his veins glowing with golden fire. The gods screamed, their forms unraveling into nothingness as the light consumed them. And then, silence. The light faded. The gods were gone. The heart was still. Elara fell to her knees. Kale lay motionless before her, his chest still, his eyes closed. The mark at her throat dimmed to a soft ember. Kale, her voice broke. She cradled his face, her tears falling like starlight onto his skin. You can't. Not after everything. A soft exhale brushed her hand. He was breathing. Barely. His eyes fluttered open, no longer gold, but a soft, human amber. Elara, he whispered. The curse, it's gone. She nodded through her tears, a trembling smile breaking through. Then so are the gods. Above them, the black sky began to fade. For the first time in millennia, light broke through, dawn spreading across a world reborn. The ground beneath them shifted, solidifying into real stone. The air filled with the scent of rain. The shadows that had haunted them for so long drifted upward, dissolving into sparks of silver light. Kale sat up slowly, his body weakened but alive. Elara helped him, her fingers interlacing with his. What now? He asked softly. She looked toward the horizon, where the new sun was rising, warm, golden, and real. Now, she said, we live. He smiled faintly. And if the gods return? She met his gaze, eyes alight with quiet fire. Then they'll learn what happens when mortals choose their own fate. The wind rose, carrying the scent of morning across the vast, quiet world. The first day of freedom. Elara leaned against Kale, her head resting against his shoulder. And as the dawn bathed them in gold, the shadows whispered their last words, not of power or prophecy or pain, but of peace. And so, the shadows finally fell silent, and dawn, at last, remembered their names. Elara and Kale were never meant to exist, yet together, they defied gods, fate, and time itself. In the end, it wasn't power that freed them, it was choice. Thank you for walking through the darkness with them tonight. If their story moved you, if it stirred something quiet and ancient within, then you belong here, among us. Subscribe to the channel and join me again for more dark fantasy love stories, where every shadow hides a heart, and every ending begins with a whisper.